Do you like cute dragons? How about empanadas or elf espresso? If you have a taste for cute dragons and questionable puns, have I got a game for you? Flamecraft is a game for 1 to 5 players from Cardboard Alchemy, designed by Manny Vega with art from Sandra Tang. In Flamecraft, players take on the role of Flamekeepers, residents of this little village full of artisan dragons. Artisan dragons are these cute little guys who can create special flames that create all kinds of magical and wondrous items. As a Flamekeeper, you're gifted with the ability to speak with these dragons. You can guide them around the village and instruct them on what to make and what shopkeepers to help. And in doing so, increase your reputation with the village, which is ultimately how you win the game. To set up, roll out the town mat in the middle of the table. Then take the 6 starter shops, identifiable by this little trumpet icon in the corner. Place each of the starter shops in a random location around the outside of the map. Place each starter artisan dragon face up on the shop with its matching icon. These are also identifiable by the little trumpet icon on them. Make sure that they match the type of shop that you're placing them in. For instance, make sure the meat dragon goes in the meat shop, the plant dragon goes in the plant shop, etc. Place the goods tokens in separate piles at one end of the board. You can use little 3D printed cup holders like we have here, or just place them in piles, whatever works easiest for you. Then, take the coin tokens and place them on the fountain in the center of the map. Next, take the remaining shop cards and separate them by type. For instance, make sure the bread shops stay together, the plant shops stay together, the potion shops stay together, etc., etc. With a 7th pile for all other icons. Once you have each of the shop types separated, shuffle the individual stacks. Then take 1 card from the top of each of the good shop piles. These are the shops with particular icons in the corners, like meat, leaf, bread, etc. From the 7th pile, with all of the other extra types of icons, take 4 cards. At this point, you should have a pile of 10 shop cards. Shuffle this stack and create the shop deck for the game, placing it on the opposite end of the town board. Now, pull out the Artisan Dragon deck. These cards are identifiable by the brown dragon icon on the back. If you're playing with 2 players, remove 2 of each type of dragon. If you're playing with 3 players, remove 1 of each type of dragon. If you're playing with 4 or more, leave all of the cards in the deck. Shuffle the deck and place it face down near the park. Then deal 5 cards from the top into the park itself, face up. Now find the Fancy Dragon deck. This one has a blue back with a swirly icon on it. Shuffle these cards and place them face down on the diamond symbol in the middle of the village board. Now, choose either the purple or golden enchantment deck. You're only going to use one of these. It's recommended that you use the purple deck for your first game. Shuffle the chosen deck and place it in the marked space inside the reputation track. Then, reveal the top 5 cards and place them in a face-up row next to the deck. Each player should choose a player aid with a matching reputation marker and player token. Optionally, you can play with the Companion Dragons deck. These cards are identifiable by the claw symbol on their back. In this case, each player will pull one random Companion Dragon and place it face up in front of them. Each Companion Dragon has a unique ability that can be used once per game. Once you have used its ability, flip the card over to show that it's exhausted and cannot be used again. Next, take the reputation markers, mix them up, and reveal one at random. This will be the starting player. Then, deal 3 starting Artisan Dragon cards to each player. Finally, each player will take 2 Fancy Dragon cards. Look at them, choose which one you want to keep, and then place the other one at the bottom of the deck. If you're playing with 4 or 5 players, the 4th and or 5th player will also take 1 goods token of their choice before starting the game. On your turn, you can take one of 2 actions. The first is to move to a shop. When you do this, you start by gathering resources. That basically means looking at all of the icons in a shop and gathering matching tokens. So in the case of this bread shop, there are 2 bread tokens visible, one on the shop itself and one on the dragon. So we would get 2 bread tokens for that. Next, a player can choose to place one of the Artisan Dragons in their hand on one of the available spots in the shop. This shop has 2 available spots, here and here. When placing a dragon in an empty spot, you have to make sure that its icon matches one of the icons pictured in these spots. So for instance, you could place a bread or a meat dragon here, but you could only place a meat dragon in this spot. The smaller icon on the far right shows what reward you're going to get for placing a dragon there. So for instance, I have Loaf here, who is a bread type dragon, so I could place him in this secondary spot and take a coin as my reward. Finally, at this point you can choose to flame up one of the dragons in the shop. This shop now has 2 dragons on it, so I have a choice. I can flame up either Pan or Loaf. When you flame up a dragon, you check their ability on the bottom of the card and see what that flame up ability allows you to do. In this case, they both do the same thing. They will allow you to draw a card from the Artisan Dragon deck and add it to your hand. Now you may have noticed that by adding a Loaf to the shop, there are now 3 bread icons visible on critical rolls. That means in the future, if another Flamekeeper moves here and takes the Gather Goods action, they'll be able to take 3 bread tokens instead of just 2 like I was able to this turn. If on a gathering phase you place a dragon in the 3rd and final slot on a shop, at that point you draw another shop from the top of the shop deck, place it in one of the available locations face down, complete your turn, collecting your icons, firing up dragons, etc. And then once your turn is complete, go ahead and flip this shop over, revealing what it is. If you move into a shop already occupied by 1 or more players, you must pay each player already there 1 goods token apiece. Now what do you use these goods tokens for? Well, that's where these enchantments come in. Instead of moving to a shop, gathering, placing dragons, firing dragons up, you can also use your turn to purchase an enchantment. For instance, this Empanada's enchantment. To purchase this enchantment, we would need 1 plant token and 1 gem token. However, if we only have one of the required tokens and we have a coin, coins can always be used as a wild goods token. However, keep in mind that each coin you hold on to at the end of the game counts as 1 more victory point. The other thing to consider is if we look at the bottom of this enchantment card, we see in the first space says that we get 0 hearts if we purchase this enchantment with just 1 leaf and 1 gem token. However, if we used 2 leaves and 2 gem tokens, we would get 2 reputation for this. Likewise, if we increased it even more, we'd get 4 and then 8, depending on how many of each of these token types we choose to spend to purchase this enchantment. Regardless of how many you spend, when you purchase it, you place it above the shop with a matching icon. So in this case, this enchantment has to go in the bread shop. It will now add an extra bread token on top of the 3 that are already there. So someone coming here in the future will now be able to gather 4 bread tokens. After you enchant a shop, you may optionally fire up all the dragons currently in that shop. Some abilities allow you to reserve an enchantment. When reserving an enchantment, take one of the enchantments from the face-up row and place it in front of you. In the future, you may use your reserved enchantment instead of one of the enchantments from the face-up row. Depending on how many goods tokens you spent to purchase the Empanadas enchantment, go ahead and score that number of reputation points, moving your reputation marker along the reputation track. Again, the person who has moved furthest around this track and gained the most reputation by the end of the game will win. That's basically the entire turn structure. You and the other players will take turns moving to shops, gathering goods, placing dragons or casting enchantments, and earning reputation. You'll keep doing this until either the Artisan Dragon deck has been emptied, or the enchantment deck has been emptied. Whenever one of these 2 decks reaches the bottom, you will then all take 1 final turn, and the game will come to an end. At that point, tally up the score for each person, see who is furthest along on the reputation track here in the middle, and that person is the winner. So what about these fancy dragons? They don't actually make anything. They just sort of leech off of the artisan dragons, the sort of ultimate capitalists, if you will. But they do offer you some benefits. For instance, they're basically little bundles of reputation points if you can meet the requirements listed on their card. For instance, Buddy here gives you +2 reputation for every other 2 pairs of fancy dragons that you have out. So he's sort of a score multiplier. They all vary differently, they all require different things. They're just extra ways for you to earn some more points as you go. Remember to hold on to your player aid. This is going to come in very handy as you play. It gives you a full breakdown of what each type of dragon does, as well as the turn structure. You have lots of dragons here, but one thing to keep in mind, all dragons that share the same icon are going to behave the same way. So it's very easy once you learn what the potion dragons do versus the meat dragons versus the iron dragons. Once you see them on the board, regardless of what their individual artwork looks like, you can know immediately what they're going to do based on the symbol that they have in the corner. So that's Flamecraft. Fun game of little dragons and big puns. If you like this, please be sure to like and subscribe. We've got lots more ridiculous cardboard-related content for you right here at Elevation Games. And I will see you next time.